Okay, we're now on to the last rule of our rules of indices, rule number 7. And essentially it dictates that when I have something with a fractional index, with a fractional power, I can rewrite it as that thing having a power and a root. Now there's two different ways this can be written, and I've wrote both out. So one is we have the brackets and the power is on the outside. And the second one is we don't have the brackets, but the power is on the inside with the A. Both of them are fine. Generally, I prefer this one. So I'm going to keep writing it out like this. But I do have a few questions where something is going to look like our second one here. So I have a little way to help you remember this rule. So the main thing is imagine a flower. And I've got my roots, and that's my sort of ground there. And what I want you to remember is the flower is the power, and the bottom is the root. So the flower is the power and the bottom is the root. And if we look, so my flower, so the flower is the power, that's my M, that is my power on both of these different ways to write it. The bottom is the root, where I've got my roots. So where I've got my number on the bottom, that is the number by the square, by the root sign. So by you using that, and I am going to say it for every question, so it's going to get stuck in your head, that is a pre-warning. But things like that help you remember stuff, especially when you've got lots and lots of things to memorize. So I highly recommend coming up with some of these of your own if there's ever something that you think you might struggle to remember. So let's jump straight to it then. So it says, express the following as roots. So I've got m to the power of 2 over 3. So, going to draw in my root sign. M is going to be underneath it. So the flower is the power. So my power is going to be 2. And the bottom is the root. So that means my 3 is going to go in here. Okay, next one. So again, my V is going to be under that root sign. So the flower is the power. So that means the 5 is going to go up here. And then the bottom is the root. And I can write 2 in there, but that's just saying what times by itself twice makes V. So that is still just a square root sign, so I don't need it. And keep that in mind. If I have a root sign and there's no number, that means there's going to be a 2 in there. But I don't really need it, so I'm not going to put it in. Okay, this next one. I've got q to the minus 1 over 4. So I actually need to use a bit of my rule 6 in here, which is where when I have something to the power of negative, I flip it into a fraction and that sign drops. So I'm going to have to use that first. So it's going to flip into a negative, and then I'm going to have q to the power of a quarter, and now I can use this rule 7. So getting that q in there. So the flower is the power, which is at 1. And I can put the 1 on the outside, but I don't really need it. So I'm not going to have it there. And then the bottom is the root. That 4 there is the bottom. So I'm going to have 4 in there. Okay, next one here. So this follows a similar rule to some of the ones we've seen before, where that fraction is actually exclusively dealing with the number it is, or that power is exclusively dealing with the thing it's directly next to. So these are separated by 3 times x to the power of 7 over 2. So we work with it the exact same way as before, so that 3 is not going to be affected by it at all. however my x is going to be. So the flower is the power, so that means my 7 is my power up here, and the bottom is the root. So I would put the 2 in here, but I don't need it, so I'm not going to have it. Okay, same again. I've got 8y to the power of -3/2. So remember, keep in mind that those are actually multiplied together. So I'm going to deal with it the exact same way. So I'm going to separate it out a bit first. Oh, I've already done my separation. So the 8 is going to be left unaffected. But I've got y to the power of -3/2. So I'm going to deal with my rule 6. It's going to flip into the fraction, and that y is going to be on the bottom. And now I can apply my rule 7. So the flower is the power. So I'm going to have 3 up there. And the bottom is the root. And again, I can put the 2 there, but I don't have to. I can leave it out. And remember, it's only because it's a 2 I can leave it. All right, so that's one way to answer these questions. Now on to a way when we actually have to deal with the numbers. And I've got another set of questions after these as well. So I'm just going to quickly draw out my flower with my roots. It's my little constant reminder. So here I've got question 1, I've got 25 to the power of a half. So first I want to use my rule 7. So the flower is the power, so my power up there would be 1, and the bottom is the root, so that power there would be 2. But again, that power of 1 on the outside is not necessary. That 2 for it being a square root is not necessary, so I'm going to just get rid of those. So all I have there is, what is the square root of 25? The square root of 25 is 5. Next one then. So the flower is the power, so I'm going to have 2 as my power. The bottom is the root, so the 3 is going to go in my root sign there. So then firstly, I want to think, what is the cube root of 1,000? What times by itself 3 times would give me 1,000? Well, if I did 10 times 10 times 10, that gives me 1,000. Let's just leave that all up there. So that means 10 is the cube root. And now I need to do 10 squared, and 10 squared is just 100. Oh, I went to write 1,000 for some reason. There we go, 100. Okay, next one. Again, I've got that pesky negative in there. So I'm going to do my rule 6. So I'm going to flip it into that fraction. So I'm going to have 1 over 8 to the power of 4 over 3. And so then sorting it out, my flower is the power, so that means the 4 is going on the outside. My bottom is the root, so that 3 is going to go in here. So the cube root of 8, something that times by itself 3 times to give you 8. And if you are ever uncertain what a cube root of something is, just work your way through until you get your answer. See what 2 times 2 times 2 is. See what 3 times 3 times 3 is. 4 times 4 times 4. And so forth. Start small, work your way down, and you will eventually hit it. And in fact, when you do that, you would find 2 times 2, times it by 2 again, that will give us that 8. So cube root of 8 is 2. Then 2 to the power of 4. Again, 2 times 2 is 4, times that by 2 again is going to be 8, times that by 2 again is 16. So I'm going to have 1 over 16. So just make sure when you evaluate, you are then actually following through with working out the rooting as well as the power. Okay, last question then. So example, write each of these as a fractional index. So what this is saying, that's saying write it with a power that is a fraction. So we're basically doing the reverse this time. So I've got my y here. So I've got y, and then I'm going to have a fraction. 3 is my power. The flower is the power, so that means 3 is on the top. And the bottom is the root, so that means my 5 is on the bottom. And that's it. Question 2. The flower is my power, so the 11 is the power, so that means 11's on the top. And the bottom is the root. The 6 is in the square root sign. Not square root. 6 is in the root sign, so that means 6 is on the bottom. Okay. Oh, what am I doing there? So x, the flower is my power. There is no power written anywhere here. So that means it's going to be 1 on the top. And then the bottom is the root. The 10 is in my root sign, so that means 10 is going to go there. And then last but not least, the flower is the power. So 5 is on the top. And the bottom is the root. There is no number here, so that means it's a 2 because it's a square root. And those are our rules of indices. So the hardest part is obviously memorizing them all and then being able to identify in a question when to use one rule and not the other. But honestly, it is one of those, the more you practice it, the more you see questions, the easier it gets. Just because these can be asked in a whole variety of ways. Let me know if there are any issues, and good luck with the work.